They say the truth always has a way of coming out. But what nobody tells you is how heavy it feels when you already know the truth, and you're just waiting for the other person to admit it. That's where I found myself. Sitting across from the woman I loved, watching her laugh with a glass of wine in her hand, and knowing deep inside that she had betrayed me. And yet, I still asked her the question I already knew the answer to. But before I take you to that night, the night my life changed, let me take you back to the beginning, because every story of heartbreak begins with a story of love. I met her at a friend's birthday party. The kind of night where you don't expect much, just music, laughter, and a few drinks. And then I saw her. She wasn't the loudest in the room, but there was something magnetic about her. The way she smiled without even trying. The way her eyes lit up when she spoke. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, and maybe that's why she impressed me the most. A friend introduced us, and we started talking. What began as small talk quickly turned into a conversation I didn't want to end. She had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the room. By the end of the night, I was hooked. And judging by the way she laughed at my bad jokes, I think she was too. We started seeing each other more often. Coffee dates that turned into long dinners. Walks in the park that stretched until the stars came out. Every time my phone buzzed and her name appeared, I couldn't help but smile. Love has a way of making ordinary things feel extraordinary. A simple meal together felt like a celebration. A rainy day walk felt like an adventure. Falling asleep on a call, hearing her soft breathing on the other side, felt like home. I remember one night in particular. We sat in my car, music playing softly, her head resting on my shoulder. She whispered, "I feel safe with you." Those 4 words carved themselves into my heart. Fast forward 2 years, and I knew I wanted forever with her. So, on a quiet evening, I took her to the spot where we had our first date. Nervous, my hand shaking, I pulled out a small box and asked her the question that every man hopes to ask only once in his life. "Will you marry me?" Her eyes filled with tears. She covered her mouth with her hand and nodded before finally saying the word I was desperate to hear. "Yes." That night, I felt like the luckiest man alive. Our wedding wasn't huge, but it was perfect. Close family, friends, and a promise to love each other forever. I remember watching her walk down the aisle, her smile radiant, and thinking, this is it. This is the beginning of everything I ever wanted. The first year of marriage was just as beautiful as I had imagined. We built routines, inside jokes, and dreams about the future. Lazy Sunday mornings with coffee in bed, road trips with the windows down, and our favorite songs blasting. Nights where we'd fall asleep holding hands. If anyone had asked me then, I would have said I had found my soulmate, and I would have believed it with my whole heart. But life has a strange way of surprising us, because even while I was living in that happiness, small cracks had already begun to appear. Tiny things you'd brush off at first. She started being more protective of her phone. She laughed a little less at my jokes. She spent more time away, late nights at work, last-minute plans with friends. I didn't think much of it back then. Why would I? We were in love. She was my wife. And when you love someone, you don't count shadows. You only see the light. I wish I had paid more attention, because those little cracks, they were the beginning of the end. It began with her phone. In the early days of our marriage, she'd leave it lying around carelessly. She'd laugh at messages from her friends and even hand me the phone to show me memes or photos. There was no hesitation, no need for secrecy. But slowly that changed. One evening, I walked into the living room and saw her quickly lock her screen and slip the phone into her pocket. I brushed it off, thinking maybe it was a private chat with a friend. But then it happened again and again. When I asked her about it, she smiled and said, "Oh, it's just work stuff. You wouldn't be interested." And I believed her because I wanted to. Soon after, her work hours grew longer. She started staying at the office late, coming home well past dinner time. She'd shrug and say, "Deadlines, meetings, you know how it is." At first, I admired her dedication. I told myself she was ambitious, hard-working. But then I started noticing the little inconsistencies. She'd come home dressed up, makeup still fresh, too fresh for someone who had been working late. Her perfume lingered, not the one she usually wore, but something new, sharp, unfamiliar. I wanted to ask, who are you really dressing up for? But instead, I swallowed the question. The warmth we once shared began to fade. Conversations that used to last for hours now ended in silence. She laughed less at my jokes. Our dinners together became shorter, sometimes eaten in silence as she scrolled through her phone. Even her touch felt different. The kisses were quick, almost absent-minded. The hugs lacked the warmth they once carried. It was as if she was there in body, but somewhere else entirely in spirit. I kept telling myself that it was just stress, that maybe she was going through something she hadn't shared with me yet. But deep down I knew there were nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing beside me. My mind would replay every little detail. The late nights, the new perfume, the phone she never let out of her sight. I would turn over, look at her sleeping peacefully, and whisper silently to myself, "Please, let me be wrong." But the knot in my stomach only grew tighter. She began making excuses to go out more often. "Girls' night," she'd say with a smile, already halfway out the door. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to trust her. But the more she repeated the same words, the less they sounded true. One night, she came home later than usual. I asked gently, "How was it? Did you have fun?" She hesitated for a moment, then gave a vague answer. "Yeah, it was fine." Her tone was flat, her eyes avoiding mine. That was when I realized something important. People don't need to lie with words. They lie with silence, with hesitation, with the small details they leave out. Days turned into weeks, and the distance only grew. I found myself watching her more closely, analyzing every word, every gesture, every excuse. It wasn't healthy. I knew that. But when trust begins to crack, doubt rushes in like water through a broken dam. I stopped being myself around her. I laughed less. I spoke less. I was careful, cautious, afraid of pushing her away, even though part of me knew she was already slipping through my fingers. One night, I tried to bring it up. I said, "Is everything okay between us? You've been different." She frowned, almost annoyed. "Of course everything's fine. Why would you even ask that?" I wanted to press, to ask her about the late nights, the perfume, the secrecy. But when I looked at her tired eyes and the sharp edge in her tone, I backed down. "Nothing," I said quietly. And in that moment, a wall went up between us, a wall that only grew taller with every passing day. It's strange how someone you once knew better than anyone can suddenly feel like a stranger. We lived in the same house, slept in the same bed, shared the same meals, yet she felt 1,000 miles away. And the worst part? I didn't know how to reach her anymore. I kept hoping it was all in my head, that maybe we just needed a vacation, or time to reconnect. But deep down, I knew the truth. The seeds of doubt had already taken root, and soon they would grow into something I couldn't ignore. For weeks, I lived in a fog of doubt. Every smile she gave me felt rehearsed. Every excuse she offered left me with more questions than answers. I told myself I needed proof, real proof, because until then, it was all just suspicion, shadows in my mind. But deep down, my heart already knew. And one night, the truth finally found me. It happened on an ordinary evening. She came home late again, claiming she had been at a team dinner. She kissed me on the cheek, the scent of alcohol on her breath, and headed straight for the shower. Her phone, for once, was left on the nightstand, unlocked, screen glowing softly in the dim room. I don't know what possessed me in that moment. Maybe it was months of suspicion boiling over. Maybe it was the way she laughed a little too casually when she gave her excuse. Or maybe it was just instinct. My hands trembled as I reached for the phone. My heart pounded so loudly in my chest, I was afraid she would hear from the bathroom. And then I saw it. A message. Not from a friend. Not from family. From a name I didn't recognize. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you." My vision blurred. My stomach twisted. I scrolled. More messages. More words that stabbed me like knives. "When can I see you again?" "I miss you already." "Don't let him find out." That last one hit the hardest. Don't let him find out. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It wasn't just doubt. It was real. The truth I had been running from was now staring me in the face, written in glowing letters on the screen I held in my shaking hand. I felt the room spin around me. My chest tightened, my throat closed, and I had to remind myself to breathe. There's no manual for what to do when you discover the person you love has betrayed you. Do you scream? Do you cry? Do you confront them immediately? I did none of those things. Instead, I sat there in silence, clutching her phone, as tears welled in my eyes. When I heard the shower stop, I panicked. I quickly placed the phone back on the nightstand, exactly where I had found it, and pretended nothing happened. She walked into the room, her hair damp, her skin glowing from the heat of the water. She smiled faintly at me, that same smile I had fallen in love with, and climbed into bed beside me. I lay there, my body stiff, my heart shattered, pretending to sleep as she drifted off peacefully. That night was the longest of my life. I turned my back to her, eyes wide open in the darkness, my mind replaying every message I had just read. Her breathing was steady, calm, innocent, like she had no idea the secret she carried had just been exposed. I wanted to shake her awake, to demand answers, but instead I lay still. Why? Because part of me still loved her. Part of me was terrified that if I confronted her, I'd lose her forever. So I stayed silent. And in that silence, I realized something. The woman lying next to me wasn't the same woman I had married. She was a stranger who shared my bed, my home, my life. After that night, everything changed for me. Even though I didn't say a word, I watched her more closely. Every time her phone buzzed, my stomach twisted. Every time she said she had to work late, my heart sank. I became an actor in my own home, pretending everything was normal, while inside I was falling apart. She laughed, she smiled, she kissed me, and all the while I heard the echo of those messages in my mind. Last night was amazing. Don't let him find out. They haunted me like ghosts. You might wonder why I didn't confront her immediately. The truth is, I was scared. I was scared of hearing the confession from her own lips, because once she said it out loud, once she admitted it, there would be no going back. Our marriage, our love, our future, it would all crumble. So I carried the truth alone, hoping, foolishly, that maybe she'd stop, that maybe she'd realize what she was doing and come back to me. But cheaters don't stop because of guilt. They stop only when the truth is dragged into the light. One evening, weeks after I first saw the messages, she came home drunk, not tipsy, drunk. Her laughter was too loud, her steps unsteady. She dropped her purse on the floor and collapsed onto the couch. I watched her from across the room, my heart pounding. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. Because I knew that under the weight of alcohol, masks slip, secrets spill, and tonight I was going to hear the truth, not through messages on a screen, but from her own lips. I sat beside her, my chest tight, my hands trembling. I looked her in the eyes that had once promised me forever, and asked the question I had been carrying for weeks. Are you cheating on me? Her head tilted back against the couch, eyes half closed, the smell of wine heavy on her breath. She laughed at nothing, a weak, tired laugh, before reaching for her glass again. I could feel my own pulse in my ears. My throat was dry. My hands shook as if I was about to jump off a cliff. For weeks, I had been carrying the weight of the truth in silence. Tonight, it was going to come out. I leaned closer, my voice barely above a whisper. Are you cheating on me? The moment the words left my lips, the room went cold. It was as if time froze. She blinked, processing the question, and for a brief second, I saw something in her eyes, fear. She tried to laugh it off. What? No, of course not. Why would you even ask me that? But her voice cracked, and in that crack, I heard the truth. I pressed again, this time firmer. Don't lie to me. I know. Her smile faded. She sat upright, her hands fidgeting, eyes darting everywhere but at mine. You're being paranoid, she muttered, but the confidence in her voice was gone. The wine had loosened her grip on control, and she knew it. I looked at her, my chest tight, my heart aching, and said, "I've seen the messages. I know about him." Her face went pale. Her lips parted, but no words came out. That silence was louder than any confession. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen." Those words shattered me more than if she had screamed yes, because they weren't a denial. They weren't even an apology. They were an admission. Tears burned in my eyes as I asked, "How long?" She looked down at her hands, her voice trembling. "A few months. A few months. Months of lies, of excuses, of me lying awake while she was out with him. Months of me believing we still had something real, while she gave pieces of herself to someone else." Anger surged through me. I wanted to scream, to demand every detail, to throw every memory we had in her face. But beneath the anger was something worse. Heartbreak. The kind of heartbreak that doesn't just hurt, but breaks you apart piece by piece. I asked her why. Why him? Why not come to me if you were unhappy? Why destroy everything we built? She wiped at her tears, her words slurring with alcohol. "I don't know. I felt alive again. I didn't think it would go this far. Alive again, as if our life together had been nothing but a cage she wanted to escape." Those words cut deeper than the betrayal itself. After her confession, the room went still. I couldn't speak. She couldn't look at me. The silence between us was thick, suffocating, filled with everything we weren't saying. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled away. Her touch felt foreign now, tainted. I sat there, staring at the woman I had once promised forever to, realizing forever had ended the moment she let someone else into her arms. In that silence, I understood why I had asked the question even though I already knew the answer. Because knowing your heart and hearing it from their lips are two very different kinds of pain. One eats you alive slowly. The other crushes you all at once. And in that crushing moment, I finally let the truth in. I loved her, but I could no longer trust her. And love without trust is just a slow death. She cried that night, whispering apologies that felt empty. I sat in silence, the tears rolling down my face not from her words, but from the memories they had already destroyed. Every smile, every kiss, every promise, all of it replayed in my mind, poisoned now by the image of her with him. I wanted to hold her and push her away at the same time. I wanted to forgive her and never see her again. It was a war between my heart and my pride, and neither side was winning. Eventually, she stumbled to the bedroom and fell asleep, her tears soaking the pillow. I stayed on the couch, staring into the darkness, listening to the sound of the woman who had broken me sleeping peacefully in the next room. And as I sat there, I realized that the breaking point wasn't her confession. It wasn't even the cheating itself. The breaking point was knowing that the woman I loved was gone. And no matter how much I wished otherwise, she wasn't coming back. That night changed everything. I sat alone on the couch until the first light of morning broke through the curtains. My eyes were swollen from tears I didn't even remember shedding. The house was silent except for her soft breathing from the bedroom, but that silence felt heavier than thunder. I thought about walking into the room, shaking her awake and demanding more answers. But what more could she say? She had already admitted it. The truth was out, and yet it didn't bring me the relief I thought it would. It only brought emptiness. When she woke up, her eyes were red, her face pale. She avoided looking at me as she moved around the kitchen, pouring herself water. The guilt hung on her like a second skin, but I didn't speak. I had no words left. I just watched her, every movement foreign to me now, as if she were a stranger living in my home. The hours passed in silence. She tried once or twice to break it, whispering, "I'm sorry," her voice trembling, but I couldn't respond. Sorry felt too small. Sorry couldn't rebuild trust. Sorry couldn't erase the nights she spent in someone else's arms. In the days that followed, I carried the weight of her betrayal everywhere I went. At work, I'd stare at my computer screen, unable to focus, hearing her words echo in my mind. At night, I lay awake on the very bed we once shared, imagining the lies she had whispered while I thought she was mine. People talk about heartbreak as if it's loud, dramatic, explosive. But the truth is, heartbreak is quiet. It's the silence in the morning when you don't say goodbye before leaving for work. It's the distance at dinner when you don't ask how their day was. It's the unspoken knowledge that nothing will ever be the same again. She tried to fix it at first. She promised me it was over with him. She said she'd do anything to make it right, that she still loved me. But every time I looked at her, I saw the messages burned into my memory. Every time she touched me, I imagined his hands instead of mine. Love doesn't vanish overnight, but neither does betrayal. And the two can't live in the same heart for long. I found myself wondering why I had asked her at all. Why had I forced the truth out when I already knew? And then I realized the answer. Knowing silently had been eating me alive. Carrying the truth alone was killing me slowly. Asking her, hearing her admit it, it destroyed me, but it also freed me. Because once she said the words, there was no more pretending, no more excuses, no more lies I could hide behind to comfort myself. The truth, no matter how ugly, was finally real. Some nights, I'd sit and replay our entire relationship in my mind, from the night we met to the moment she confessed. I wondered if I had missed the signs all along, if maybe she was never truly mine to begin with. That thought hurt the most, the idea that the love I had believed in so completely might have never been as pure as I thought. I thought about forgiveness. I thought about whether it was possible to rebuild. I even thought about staying, convincing myself that maybe people make mistakes. Maybe love is about second chances. But then I'd remember the way she looked at me the night she confessed, the way her voice cracked as she admitted she felt alive again with him. That wasn't a mistake. That was a choice. And choices have consequences. In the end, I realized I couldn't stay. Not because I didn't love her, but because love without trust is just pain dressed as hope. I packed a bag one morning and left without saying much. She cried, begged me to give her another chance, but my heart had already made a decision. Staying would have been like trying to rebuild a house on ashes. Leaving her was the hardest thing I've ever done. For days afterward, I felt like half of me was missing. I'd wake up reaching for her, only to remember she wasn't there. I'd hear a song we once loved, and it would hit me like a punch in the chest. The pain was unbearable, but it was honest. And honest pain, no matter how sharp, is better than living in a beautiful lie. Now, looking back, I understand why I asked the question even though I already knew the answer. Because sometimes it's not enough to know in your heart. Sometimes you need to hear the truth spoken out loud, no matter how much it hurts. Because only then can you stop living in denial and start moving forward. I don't know if she regrets it. I don't know if she ever thinks about what she threw away. Maybe she does. Maybe she doesn't. But I do know this. I'll never forget the night I asked a question I already knew the answer to. The night that broke me, but also freed me. And maybe that's the hardest lesson of all. Sometimes the truth doesn't set you free gently. Sometimes it shatters you first, so you can rebuild yourself stronger than before. So I leave you with this question. If you were in my place, if you knew the person you loved had betrayed you, would you still ask them for the truth? Or would you rather live in the comfort of a lie? And that's how it ended. Not with a fight, not with screaming, but with silence. The kind of silence that speaks louder than any words ever could. The truth destroyed me, but it also set me free. Because sometimes holding on to a lie is more painful than facing reality head on. I knew she cheated. Deep down, I knew long before I asked her. But asking her wasn't about finding the answer. It was about forcing the truth into the light. And once she admitted it, I could finally stop living in the shadows. Life doesn't always give us the endings we want. Sometimes, the people we love the most become the very people who hurt us the deepest. And no matter how much we wish we could go back, there's no undoing betrayal. But here's what I've learned. When you know the truth, ask anyway. Because even if it breaks you, it frees you. Now I want to ask you, if you were in my shoes, would you have asked her? Would you have wanted to hear the truth out loud? Or would you rather live in the comfort of not knowing? Tell me in the comments. Because your answer might be different than mine. And maybe that's where the real story begins.